Hi, this is Billy Cross. I'm here in my house in Barcelona in Spain, and I wanted to talk this evening about 1966. I was accepted into the Peace Corps as a Peace Corps volunteer in Guatemala, and I went to Puerto Rico to train for 3 months, and then I was sent in country to Guatemala, and there was a coup d'etat that was going on at the time, and uh, we were, instead of put close to Guatemala City, we were put in very remote areas in Guatemala. I was sent into the northern part of Guatemala near the border with Mexico near Chiapas. And I was doing what's called rural community development work, which means actually not much. And after about 6 months, we were required to go to the United States Embassy in Guatemala City to have a physical examination. So I went. And during the process of the examination, the doctor that was giving the examination, asked me all these questions. They were psychological questions. And one of them was, have you ever had homosexual fantasies? And I had never had sex with a man, but I put down, well, yeah, kind of. I thought about having sex with a man, but I'd never had sex with a man. And he walked over to his medicine cabinet in the doctor's office at the U.S. Embassy in Mexico City, excuse me, Guatemala City, and he pulled out a bottle of medication, which I was to find out later on, several days later, that was Thorazine. And he filled a syringe and he injected me with Thorazine. And kind of the next thing that I knew within a few hours, of course, I was very, very disoriented. And the next thing I knew, I was on a Pan American jet with him, the doctor, and two U.S. Marines that were worked for the United States Embassy in Guatemala City. And I was sent to Washington, D.C., where I immediately from the airport was taken to Sibley Memorial Hospital, and I was committed to the lockup unit of Sibley Memorial Hospital, the psych ward. And I got there, and it was about 300 men, as I remember, most of them gay, and most of them either Peace Corps or U.S. State Department personnel. And I was heavily medicated on Thorazine. And after about 2 or 3 days, I noticed I could look down the hall from my room. The room had about 10 beds in it. And I could see down the hall, and I could see that there were 2 or 3 men that I knew who were from my room, and they were on gurneys. And then I could hear there was a door opened, and I could hear that there was screaming going on, and they were doing aversion therapy. They were trying to change gay men to straight men. And the next day, I went to see my psychiatrist, which I had to see every day, and he said to me, I am very worried about what's going on here, and I don't like what's going on. And so I have written a prescription for you not to be given any medication, and for you to be given a pass out of this institution at 9 o'clock every morning, and you are to report back at 9 o'clock at night. And under no circumstances do I want you to be back in this lockup unit of this hospital, of this psych ward, before 9 o'clock in the evening. And I said, why? And he said, because there's no reason for you to be subjected to aversion therapy of trying to turn gay men into straight men, particularly when you've never ever had sex with a man. And I don't like what's going on. I cannot dismiss you because you have from this hospital, because you've been committed for 3 months by the United States government, by the Peace Corps, and by the State Department. And so I served my 90 days. I was dismissed. I was sent back home to California. My parents had no idea where I was this whole 3 months. They were worried sick. And when I arrived home, I was there about a week, and my draft notice arrived to be drafted into the United States Army and probably to go to Vietnam. And my father said, I don't want you to do that. I think you should go out and join the United States Coast Guard Reserve. You can continue going to school and working on your degree, and I think that's a better idea. So I thought about it, took his idea, and I joined the United States Coast Guard Reserve. Did active duty, had no problem, went through boot camp, no problem. I had gone from a mental institution to boot camp in a matter of 4 weeks. And I flew through boot camp with no problem whatsoever. And I still had not had sex with a man at all. So when I got out of active duty, I went back to school and I lived in the dorm. And I met a man, and he was half Japanese and half Irish. And he was gay, he was a photographer, became a very famous fashion photographer in New York and in London later on. And I had sex with him. And I, along about, I guess it was 1969 when Stonewall occurred, and a call came from New York to several gay men in my group saying, we have to form a gay liberation movement, a gay liberation club at California State University at Sacramento, where I was a student at the time. And we need to support our gay brothers and sisters at the Stonewall riots in New York. And it happened overnight, it happened within 24 hours. And there was about maybe 60 or 70 men that showed up at this meeting. And we went around in the circle, and they were trying to pick a president of the organization. And when I was released from the mental hospital for being homosexual, although I'd never had sex with a man at that point, I vowed that I would never let anybody ever again in my life discriminate against me based on my sexuality. And it radicalized me. And I'm glad it did. Because out of the 70 men in the room, none of them, and understandably so, they were afraid to take on the role as president of the Gay Liberation Organization in Sacramento, California. And I wasn't afraid at all. I figured that I had kind of looked over the abyss, and I'd seen the worst when I was in the lockup unit for being gay. And so I became the first president of the Gay Liberation Organization in Sacramento. And the next day, or even that evening, I guess, somebody called the Sacramento Bee newspaper, and a photo was taken of me, and the next day it appeared on the front page of the Sacramento Bee newspaper. Billy Cross, president of the Gay Liberation Organization in Sacramento, California. And of course, it had created a huge scandal. I was, I think, just going into graduate school. I was also student teaching at that time. I was working on a master's degree in elementary education. And when the principal of the school saw this on the front page of the Sacramento Bee, that me being head of the gay liberation movement in Sacramento, he called the police, and 2 police officers arrived and came to my classroom. I was a kindergarten teacher, and I had 30 5-year-olds in my class, and it was a bilingual thing where I was teaching in Spanish and English, and because I had been in the Peace Corps in Guatemala, and I was removed physically from the grounds, and my teaching credential was denied me, and yeah, it was a tough part of life, but it taught me a lot of lessons, and I'm sorry that I had to go through it, but I went through it, and I survived it, as did a lot of gay men of my generation. So that's when I decided to leave Sacramento and I moved to San Francisco. And that is for another time to discuss what happened when, as a young gay man in 1968, 1969, I moved into the Castro in San Francisco, and my life changed a lot. So again, take care of yourselves, love yourselves, and we'll chat again soon. Bye-bye.